The year is 2023. The room is beige. The coffee is stale. Frank Miller is sitting at a folding table in the back of the Lancaster Marriott Conference Hall. He is 68 years old. He has been in agricultural lending for 45 of them. He is a man who understands numbers. Numbers are clean. Numbers are honest. They do not have feelings. They do not have aspirations. They simply are. In his hand is the annual report for the Mid-Atlantic Dairy Cooperative. Page 12. A list of the top 10 producers by net profit per cow. Frank's eyes scan the list. Familiar names, good operators, men he has known for decades, men he has financed, men he has carried through bad years. Then he sees the name at number 1, Starlight Dairy, proprietor, Sarah Lang. He frowns. The name is familiar, the farm is not. He looks at the number next to her name. Net profit per cow, $2,417. The number 2 on the list is $1,650. The gap is enormous. It is a statistical impossibility. It feels like a typo. Frank looks around the room. He sees her. She is standing near the stage, talking to 2 other farmers. She is not old. She is not a man. She looks like she could be his granddaughter. And then he remembers. He remembers everything. The memory comes back not as a thought, but as a feeling. The feeling of vinyl on a hot day. The smell of cheap coffee in a styrofoam cup. The weight of certainty. He looks back down at the paper, at the name, at the impossible number. Sarah Lang, $2,417 per cow. Frank Miller did not see the number. He saw a girl of 21, sitting in his office a decade ago, dirt under her fingernails, hope in her eyes, a hope he had felt a duty to extinguish, for her own good. We tell the stories of people who were told no, the ones who were counted out, the ones who were told their dreams were impossible. We believe those stories need to be told. If you believe that too, subscribe to this channel. Because the story of Sarah Lang is not just about a number on a page. It is about what happens when you are told you cannot, by someone who genuinely believes they are helping you. The year is 2012. The month is July. The air in Frank Miller's office is cool and still. Sarah Lang sits in the chair opposite his desk. The chair is too big for her. Her file is on the desk between them. It is not thick. She is 21 years old. Her parents are gone. A car accident 2 years prior. Her grandfather died 6 months ago. He left her the farm. The old Lang place. 120 acres. A barn built in 1952. A milking parlor from the 70s. And debt. Not a lot of debt, but enough. Frank has the file open. He has read it 3 times. He knows the numbers by heart. He closes it gently. He makes a small tent with his fingers. He looks at her. Not with judgment, with pity. A kind, gentle, fatherly pity. I knew your grandfather, Sarah. He was a good man, a hard worker. But this business, it broke him. It breaks good men. Sarah says nothing. She just waits. Frank continues. His voice is soft, reasonable. You're asking for $250,000 to refurbish the barn, to buy a herd, to get the equipment running. The collateral is the land, but the land isn't enough, not for this kind of risk. Sarah finds her voice. It's a good farm. The soil is good. The pastures just need work. Frank nods. He agrees. It's a beautiful piece of land. But a farm isn't just land, Sarah. It's a business, a brutal one. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've seen men with twice your experience and 10 times your capital lose everything. They lose the farm. They lose their homes. They lose their families. He leans forward. I am not going to be the man who lets that happen to you. He says it with absolute conviction. He believes it. He believes he is protecting her. He is saving her from a future of pain and failure. This is not a business for a young woman on her own. This is not a business for someone starting with nothing but a dream. The numbers don't work. The risk is too high. I'm sorry, Sarah. The answer is no. He says it with the finality of a doctor delivering a terminal diagnosis. It is not a negotiation. It is a fact. The world as it is. And in that world, she cannot do this. He stands up, a signal the meeting is over. He expects tears. He expects pleading. He gets neither. Sarah Lang stands up. She looks him in the eye. Thank you for your time, Mr. Miller. She turns. She walks out of the office. She does not look back. Frank watches her go. He feels a pang of sadness, but also relief. He did the right thing. He is sure of it. Certainty is a comfort. It is a wall against doubt. Frank Miller was a very comfortable man. Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Not by an enemy, not by a rival, but by someone who thought they were protecting you. Someone whose refusal was wrapped in a blanket of kindness. It is the most dangerous kind of limitation, because you cannot fight it with anger. You cannot argue with its logic. It can only be disproven, and that takes time. It takes work. It takes a kind of faith that the world does not reward. Let us know in the comments if you have ever faced that kind of wall. Because what Sarah did next was not about fighting the bank. It was about proving a kind man wrong. And that is the loneliest fight there is. Sarah drove the 10 miles home. She did not turn on the radio. The silence in her pickup truck was total. She pulled into the driveway of the farm, her farm. The paint was peeling off the house. The barn roof had a sag in the middle. The fences were down in the west pasture. It looked like a place of endings, not beginnings. Her grandmother, Martha, was on the porch. She was 82. She had lived in this house her whole life. She watched Sarah get out of the truck. She saw the look on her face. She didn't ask. She just knew. They don't see it, do they? Sarah shook her head. No, Grandma, they don't see it. Martha nodded slowly. Men like that, they see numbers. They don't see the dirt. They don't see the grass. They don't see the way the sun hits the east hill in the morning. She stood up. Her movements were slow but deliberate. Come inside. I have something for you. Inside, the house smelled of lemon polish and old wood. Martha went to the roll-top desk in the parlor, the desk that had belonged to her husband, Sarah's grandfather. She pulled a thick, leather-bound book from a lower drawer, a ledger. She placed it on the kitchen table. The leather was worn smooth. The corners were soft. Your grandfather started this the day he bought this farm. Every cow, every calf, every milk check, every bag of feed. It's all in here. Sarah opened the book. The pages were filled with her grandfather's careful, blocky handwriting. Dates, names of cows, gallons of milk, dollars and cents. On the first page, in faded blue ink, was a single sentence. October 12, 1952. The dirt is enough. Sarah traced the words with her finger. Martha put her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Your grandfather built this place with a team of horses and a loan from his brother. He never trusted a bank. He used to say, The cows don't care about the bank. They care about the grass. They care if you're on time for milking. They care if the water is clean. You do right by them, and they'll do right by you. That's the only business that matters. Sarah looked from the ledger to her grandmother's face. She saw no pity there, only resolve, a quiet, unshakable belief. The bank said no. The world said no. But the ledger said yes. The dirt said yes. Her grandmother said yes. And that was enough. That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table. She read her grandfather's ledger from cover to cover. She wasn't just reading numbers. She was learning a philosophy. He didn't buy new equipment. He fixed the old. He didn't buy feed. He grew it. He didn't fight the land. He worked with it. He rotated his pastures. He built his soil. He treated his cows not as machines, but as partners. It was a system built on self-sufficiency, a system that did not require permission from a man in a clean shirt, a system built on a single, powerful idea. The dirt is enough. Sarah closed the book as the sun came up. She had a new plan, a plan that did not involve Frank Miller's bank, a plan that started not with a loan, but with work. The first year was not a year. It was a season of repair, of reclamation. She called it Year Zero. She started with the barn. The roof was the first priority. She couldn't afford a new one, so she learned how to patch one. She found a collapsed barn on a neighbor's property. The neighbor told her she could have the metal for free if she hauled it away. For 2 weeks, she worked with a crowbar and a pair of heavy gloves, peeling away sheets of rusty tin, straightening them with a hammer on the concrete floor of her own barn. She carried them up the ladder, one by one, and she nailed them into place. Cash for the nails. That was all she spent. Next was the milking parlor. The old De Laval system was a fossil. The vacuum pump was seized. The stainless steel lines were pitted. A new system would cost $50,000, money she did not have. So she took the pump apart, piece by piece. She laid the components out on a tarp. She cleaned them with a wire brush and diesel fuel. She downloaded the original service manual from the internet. She found a company in Ohio that still made the gaskets. She ordered them. $37. Cash. She spent a week reassembling it. When she threw the switch, it hummed to life, a steady, rhythmic pulse, the sound of possibility. The stanchions were rusted through at the base. She learned to weld. She bought a used Lincoln welder at a farm auction. $300. Cash. She practiced on scrap metal for days. Then she cut out the rot, and she welded in new steel. Her welds were ugly, but they were strong. The community watched. Lancaster County is a place where people notice things. They saw the light on in her barn late at night. They saw her on the roof in the hot August sun. They saw the pile of scrap metal shrink and the pile of old fence posts grow. The talk at the feed store was divided. Some of the old-timers shook their heads. A fool's errand. That place is a money pit. She's just running on grief. It's a shame. What happened to that family? Frank Miller heard the talk. It confirmed his decision. He felt a sad vindication. He was right. He had saved her from this. But others watched with a different kind of eye. An old farmer named Abe Stoltzfus drove by one afternoon. He saw Sarah struggling to stretch new wire for a fence by herself. He pulled his truck over. He got out. He didn't say much. Just took the fence stretcher from her hands, showed her how to get the leverage right. He worked with her for 3 hours. When they were done, she tried to thank him. He just waved his hand. Your granddaddy helped me raise my barn back in '68. This ain't nothing. He got back in his truck and drove away. Slowly, Piece by piece, the farm was coming back to life, not with a rush of money, but with the slow, steady application of will and work. By the end of the year, the barn was sound, the parlor worked, the fences were tight, the pastures were cleared of thistle and brush, the farm was ready. But it was a farm with no animals, a stage with no actors. And what she did next, that's the part they still talk about in Lancaster County. A dairy farm needs cows. A good Holstein ready to milk cost $2,000 in 2013. Sarah needed a herd of at least $60,000. It was a number as impossible as the loan she had been denied. She sat at her kitchen table with the ledger. She looked at her grandfather's early entries. He hadn't started with a prize-winning herd. He had started with cast-offs, cows other farmers didn't want. An idea began to form. She started visiting other dairy farms, not the successful ones, the ones that were struggling, the ones with aging owners and outdated equipment. Every farm has a cull list. Cows that are being sold for beef, cows that are old, cows with high somatic cell counts, cows that are difficult to breed, cows that were, for one reason or another, not profitable enough to keep. They were sold by the pound, not as dairy animals. Sarah didn't have $60,000, but she had $5,000, money left from her parents' life insurance. She went to a farm down the road, a man who was selling his herd and retiring. She walked through his barn, and she looked at his cull cows. She wasn't looking at their production numbers. She was looking at their feet, their eyes, their bones. She was looking for cows that weren't sick, just tired. Cows that had been pushed too hard in a concrete-floored, high-input system. She made an offer, not on his best cows, but on 30 of his culls, $500 each, $15,000 total. The farmer looked at her like she was crazy, but he agreed. It was more than the slaughterhouse would pay. So Sarah Lang started her dairy with a herd of 30 cows that no one else wanted. She brought them home. She didn't put them in the barn. She turned them out onto the pasture. The pasture she had spent a year restoring. The grass was thick with clover and rye. It was what her grandfather's ledger described, a salad bar for cows. For the first month, she didn't even milk them. She just let them be cows. She let them graze. She let them heal. The neighbors thought she had lost her mind. Buying cull cows? Turning them out on pasture? This wasn't modern dairying. This was a hobby. This was a fantasy. Frank Miller heard about it. It was worse than he thought. Not only was she going to fail, she was going to fail with sick animals. He felt a deep sense of unease. But Sarah wasn't following modern dairy science. She was following her grandfather's ledger. Low stress, high-quality forage, rotational grazing. She moved the cows to a fresh paddock of grass every 12 hours. The cows weren't eating corn silage and processed soy. They were eating what they were designed to eat, grass. And a funny thing happened. They got better. The limp in the old Holstein's back leg disappeared. The jersey with the chronic mastitis cleared up. Their coats began to shine. Their eyes grew bright. After a month, she brought them into the parlor she had rebuilt with her own hands. She milked them. The milk wasn't much at first, 30 pounds per cow per day. A conventional dairy aims for 80 or 90. But her costs were almost zero. Her feed cost was the sun and the rain. Her only major expense was the electricity to run the pump and cool the milk. She was not just a farmer. She was an innovator born of exclusion. Denied access to capital, she had been forced to create a better system, a system that didn't depend on debt, a system that didn't depend on permission, a system that was quiet, resilient, and profitable. more profitable than anyone could have possibly imagined. The first milk check arrived in April of 2013. It was for $8,452. Sarah held it in her hand for a long time. It was the first money the farm had earned in almost a decade. She didn't celebrate. She didn't rest. She took the check to the bank. Not Frank Miller's bank, a small credit union in the next town over. She opened a farm account. She paid her electric bill. She bought the supplies she needed. She put the rest away, and she went back to work. The rhythm of the farm took over, milking at dawn, moving the fence line, cleaning the equipment, milking at dusk, 7 days a week. The cows thrived. Their production began to climb. 30 pounds a day became 40. 40 became 50. It wasn't Holstein-level production, but they were mostly Jerseys and Guernseys, cows known for high butter fat, not high volume. The milk they produced was rich and creamy. The co-op that picked up her milk paid a premium for high components. Her milk checks grew every month. At the end of her first full year of operation, year 1, she sat down at the kitchen table. She had the co-op statements, she had her receipts, and she had her grandfather's ledger. She opened to a fresh page, and she did the math. Gross income, $212,000. Expenses, $32,000. Her biggest expense was the payment on the used tractor she had finally bought. Net profit, $180,000 from 30 cull cows, on a farm that a bank had declared worthless. The numbers didn't lie. Frank Miller's projections had been based on a high-cost, high-input model. He had projected her feed costs alone to be over $100,000. Hers were less than $5,000. He had projected vet bills in the tens of thousands. Hers were under $1,000. He had been using the wrong math, because he was looking at the wrong kind of farm. He could not imagine a world where less was more, where health was more valuable than volume. The witness was watching. Frank Miller sat on the loan committee for the co-op. At the end-of-year meeting, the manager presented the numbers. He mentioned a new farm, a small operation, Starlight Dairy. He noted their component premiums were the highest in the co-op. He noted their somatic cell count was the lowest. He noted their profitability was, on a per-cow basis, off the charts. Frank listened. He didn't say anything. He just felt that feeling again, the weight of his own certainty. And for the first time, it felt less like a comfort and more like a stone. But that was just the beginning. Because this is where the story becomes bigger than one farm. This is where one woman's quiet success begins to change everything. The next 10 years were a blur of work and growth. The rhythm was relentless. The expansion was steady. Year 2, 2014, Sarah had 45 cows. She kept the best heifers from her original herd. She bought the neighbor's 40 acres to the south, the land that connected her farm to the creek. She paid for it with money she had saved. Cash. Net profit that year, $235,000. Year 3, 2015, 60 cows. She built a small creamery onto the side of the barn, a simple, cinder block building. She started making cheese and yogurt and butter. She sold it at a farm stand at the end of her driveway, a simple sign painted by hand, Starlight Dairy. People came. They tasted the difference. The rich, golden butter from grass-fed cows, the tangy, creamy yogurt. They came back. They told their friends. Net profit that year? $310,000. Cash. Year 5, 2017. 90 cows. The farm stand was now a small farm store. She hired her first employee, a young woman from the next town over. She bought a new-to-her tractor, a John Deere 4440, a legend. She paid for it with money from the farm, cash. Frank Miller would drive past on his way home from work sometimes. He took the long way on purpose. He saw the new fences, gleaming high tensile wire. He saw the herd of healthy cows grazing on the lush green hills. He saw the line of cars at the farm store on a Saturday afternoon. He never stopped. He just watched. A quiet witness to a truth he had refused to see. Year 8, 2020, 120 cows. She bought the farm on the other side of her property, the one where she had bought her first cull cows. The farmer had passed away. His children wanted to sell to a developer. Sarah made them a better offer. She paid for the 100 acres and the second house and barn. Cash. She didn't tear the old barn down. She began to fix it up. She had a new idea. An idea bigger than her own success. By 2022, Starlight Dairy was no longer just a farm. It was an institution. Sarah Lang was no longer the girl with dirt under her nails. She was a force in the local agricultural community. She didn't speak much at meetings. She didn't sit on boards. She just worked. And the numbers spoke for her. They spoke a language everyone understood. The language of success. The language of resilience. The language of independence. She owed no one. She asked for nothing. She had built her world on the simple foundation her grandfather had laid out. The dirt is enough. And it was. It was more than enough. And then, the world changed. The market shifted. Feed costs skyrocketed. Fuel prices doubled. And the high-cost, high-debt model of dairy farming that Frank Miller had spent his life financing began to crumble. And that is when he finally came back to her farm. Not as a lender, but as a man asking for help. The year is 2023. A black sedan pulls into the driveway of Starlight Dairy. A driveway that is now paved. Frank Miller gets out. He is older now. The certainty in his eyes has been replaced by weariness. His bank is in trouble. A massive 2,000-cow dairy he had financed went bankrupt. The default is threatening to take the bank down with it. The ripple effects are devastating the local community. He is here today not as a banker, but as a member of a desperate committee, trying to form a new, independent co-op to save what is left of the local dairy economy. They need anchor farms, successful, stable farms to build around. They need Sarah Lang. She meets him on the porch of the house that is now painted a crisp white, with a new metal roof. She does not smile. She does not offer him coffee. She just waits. Frank starts to talk. He explains the situation, the crisis, the plan. He uses words like community and shared interest and for the good of us all. He is asking her to risk her own security, to tie her successful farm to the fate of her failing neighbors, to the very system that had told her she had no place in it. When he is finished, the silence is heavy. Sarah looks at him. Her gaze is steady, unflinching. "Why should I help you, Frank?" The question is not angry, it is factual. Frank is taken aback. "Well, for the community, to save the local farms." Sarah shakes her head slowly. "The community didn't help me. Abe Stoltzfus helped me. The rest of you watched and waited for me to fail. You didn't want me to fail because you were cruel. You wanted me to fail because it would prove you were right." Frank has no answer. She continues. "You told me I couldn't do this. You said you were protecting me. But you weren't protecting me. You were protecting your own idea of how the world works. A world where young women don't run farms. A world where you need debt to succeed. A world where a man like you gets to decide who gets a chance." She turns and goes into the house. She comes back with the ledger, her grandfather's ledger. She opens it on the porch railing. She turns the pages, past her grandfather's entries, to her own. Page after page of her neat, careful script. The numbers, the growth, the story of the last 10 years, written in ink. Look at it, Frank. This is what you said was impossible. This is the business you refused to finance. I did this not because of you. I did this in spite of you. Frank looks at the ledger. He sees the relentless accumulation of success. He sees the record of a world he did not believe could exist. He finally looks up at her, and he says the words, "I was wrong, Sarah. I was wrong. I am sorry." Sarah closes the book. The sound is soft but final. "I know you are. But being sorry doesn't fix it. You didn't just deny me alone, Frank. You denied my humanity. You told me my work didn't matter. My dream didn't matter. My grandfather's legacy didn't matter. All that mattered were your numbers, and your numbers were wrong." She pauses. Proving someone wrong who thinks they're being kind is the loneliest work there is. Frank Miller, the man of numbers, the man of certainty, has nothing left to say. He just stands there, in the shadow of the success he had declared impossible. But that's not the end of the story, because what Sarah Lang did next was not about revenge. It was about legacy. She looked at the broken man standing on her porch, and she saw an opportunity, not to punish him, but to change the system that created him. "I'll join your co-op." Frank's head snapped up, hope flickering in his eyes. She held up a hand. "On one condition, I run it, and we do things my way." And so, the Mid-Atlantic Independent Dairy Co-op was born, with Sarah Lang as its president. They didn't just market milk, they changed the rules of the game. The co-op established a micro-loan program, the Next Generation Dairy Fund. It gave small, low-interest loans to young farmers, farmers under 30, farmers with a solid plan but no collateral, farmers exactly like she had been. The loan decisions were not made by bankers. They were made by a committee of experienced farmers, people who understood the dirt, not just the numbers. The first loan went to a young couple named Maria and Carlos. They wanted to start a small goat dairy. Every bank had turned them down. Sarah's fund gave them $25,000, and she gave them something more: mentorship. She taught them about rotational grazing. She helped them build a business plan based on low costs and direct marketing. Today, their goat cheese is sold in stores from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. The legacy rule is simple. Your triumph is not individual. It is systemic. Sarah didn't just build a successful farm. She built a ladder. And she kicked it down for the next generation to climb. She bought the local feed store when it went up for sale. She started offering fair prices and honest advice. She started holding workshops on soil health and farm finances. She was teaching a new generation of farmers how to be independent, how to be resilient, how to build a farm that didn't need permission. The ripple effect of that one no in 2012 is still being felt. It created not just a successful farmer, it created a revolutionary. A quiet, determined woman who was remaking her corner of the world, in her own image. Today, if you go to Starlight Dairy, you might find Sarah in the barn, or in the cheese cave, or out in the pasture, moving a fence line. She is in her early 30s now. Her hands are strong. Her gaze is clear. The farm is home to over 200 cows, and a dozen young apprentices learning her methods. On the kitchen table in the old farmhouse sits the ledger. It is still in use. Its pages are filled with the story of a place that was supposed to die, a dream that was supposed to wither, a woman who was supposed to fail. It is a physical artifact, a testament, proof that the most dangerous limitation is the one imposed by someone who genuinely believes they are protecting you. Certainty about another person's capabilities, delivered with kindness, is a prison. It cannot be fought with anger. It can only be disproven with decades of work. Right now, somewhere in the world, a young person with a dream is sitting across a desk from a person full of kind, reasonable, soul-crushing certainty. Someone is being told they can't, that they shouldn't, that it's for their own good. This story is for them. The story of Sarah Lang is proof that the gatekeepers are not always right. It is proof that the conventional wisdom is not always wise. It is proof that sometimes the only person who can see the future is the one who is willing to build it with their own two hands. The dirt is enough. If you believe these stories matter, subscribe to the channel. If this story reminded you of a time you were told no, tell us about it in the comments. And if you know someone who needs to hear that it is possible to prove the kind doubters wrong, share this story with them.